So you feel bored. Maybe you think it is because your life lacks excitement or that you need to find a new hobby. But what if the reason why everything is boring has nothing to do with you? What if instead of you being the problem, the solution is actually in here? Hi, I'm a cognitive neuroscientist and this is our channel. Before we can get into why everything might be boring, we first need to ask, what is boredom in the first place? There are two ways to be bored. One is when you're tired and you want to sleep. We call this state lethargy. The other is when you're awake but you have nothing to do. We call this state boredom. And today we'll be focusing on the second one. If you ever looked at the definition of boredom, it says that boredom is a state of mind characterized by a lack of interest and a desire for something new and more exciting. And while this is true, it's not very helpful for figuring out why you're bored. It's like saying that a cake tastes bland without providing any insight as to why. So to understand why everything is making you feel bored, we're going to break down the science of attention and motivation. But before we do that, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an upload. And now let's get back to boredom. Our brains are constantly bombarded with sensory information. Just sitting in this room right now, I'm receiving information from my eyes about the shape, color, and motion of objects around me. I'm hearing sounds, feeling the temperature, texture, and pressure of the air around me and the chair I'm sitting on. I am also getting signals from my body telling me that I am thirsty, and that I should probably use the restroom soon. My nose is picking up a hint of burnt caramel from the coffee shop downstairs, and a subtle metallic taste is present in my mouth. All of this information gets sent to different areas of my brain for processing. The reason why you do feel overwhelmed with all of this information is because your brain is able to filter most of it out based on where you're redirecting your attention. Now, attention is the cognitive ability to selectively focus on specific information while ignoring others. It is how you're able to read this sentence and not be distracted by the fact that you can hear birds outside or that your arm is numb from sitting on it for too long. Attention allows us to focus on relevant information to complete a task or achieve a goal. So for example, if your goal is to read this sentence, you would attend to the letters that form the sentence and not the sound of birds tweeting outside. In order to study attention, scientists classify attention into two categories. The first is bottom-up attention, which refers to how your brain automatically pays attention to sudden or unexpected stimuli. A great example of this is the cocktail party effect. Imagine you're at a crowded party with many people talking at the same time. Even if all the conversations are at a low volume, you are still able to pick up on your name being called despite all the background noise. The reason you can do this is because your brain is able to detect changes in the input from your ears, and then automatically shift your attention to where the sound is coming from. In this case, your brain is passively attending to relevant information. That is, information that grabs your attention regardless of whether you were thinking about it or not. The second type of attention is top-down attention. Unlike bottom-up attention, top-down attention is goal-driven. This means that you purposefully direct your attention towards specific information to achieve a goal. For example, if you were watching a soccer game and were interested in only one team, you would attend to the movements of that particular team and ignore the rest of the field. Here, you are actively selecting what you want to pay attention to based on what you want to achieve. To better understand why everything might be boring, let's take a closer look at each type of attention. Let's start with bottom-up attention. If you're bored, you might think that it is because your environment doesn't have enough interesting things to grab your attention, like there aren't any birds singing outside or people talking at a party for you to eavesdrop on. But what if I told you that even if we put you in the most exciting place on Earth, say a Formula 1 race, you would still get bored? Research has found that humans are only capable of sustaining attention to something novel for approximately 20 seconds. After that, your brain stops extracting meaningful information from the environment no matter how exciting it is, and it starts to feel boring. The reason for this is that the area of your brain responsible for detecting novelty, the parietal cortex, starts to shut down after sustained periods of high arousal. And the part of your brain that shuts down is the same area that is responsible for helping you pay attention. So after some time, paying attention to anything becomes difficult, which leads to feelings of boredom. Now let's talk about top-down attention. Your environment may not be the cause of your boredom, but another thing that can make everything seem boring is that maybe you don't have any goals, or that your goals aren't aligned with what you are currently doing. For example, research has found that people who play video games are less likely to feel bored than those who don't. Not because video games are less boring, but because people who play them know what they need to do to have fun. In other words, they have goals and they know how to attain them. On the contrary, if you don't know how to have fun or don't know what you want, you won't be able to enjoy what you're doing and it will feel boring. This is also why people who experience depression often feel bored. Depression is a mental health condition where people lose interest in activities they once enjoyed. This loss of interest is due to the fact that people who experience depression have low levels of engagement, meaning they don't have clear goals in mind, which makes everything seem boring and meaningless. The last thing that can make everything boring is the interaction between the two types of attention we talked about earlier. As mentioned earlier, bottom-up attention refers to the ability to passively attend to relevant information. An example of this is when you read reading and a word catches your eye, because it's written in red ink. Even if you weren't thinking about red ink, the color red would grab your attention because it's unexpected. Top-down attention, on the other hand, is when you're actively looking for something in particular. An example of this is during a scavenger hunt where you're looking for a purple umbrella. In this example, bottom-up attention would help you quickly notice a purple umbrella since the color purple is very uncommon and therefore unexpected. But if you weren't looking for umbrellas, then the bottom-up attention system wouldn't kick in and you would just walk right past the purple umbrella without noticing it. This is why sometimes it takes having a conversation with someone new for you to realize that they were Albert Einstein reincarnated, or why it takes seeing a therapist for you to realize that you've been depressed. In these examples, your brain was passively attending to all kinds of information, but because your goals weren't aligned with what you were doing, you weren't able to pick up on the relevant information. So to sum things up, there are 3 reasons why everything might seem boring to you. The first is that you don't have the energy to pay attention. This is called lethargy and is the reason why people fall asleep in class. The second is that your environment isn't stimulating enough to keep your brain engaged. And the third is that your goals are misaligned with what you're doing, so you're not actively engaging with your environment. This is why if you feel unmotivated or bored, it's always a good idea to make sure that you have a plan for the day. Having a plan gives you direction and helps you engage with your environment in a way that is meaningful to you. Without it, you risk falling into a cycle where you don't have the energy to do anything, so you end up doing nothing, which makes everything feel boring. I hope you learned something new today. If you did, make sure to share this video with your friends and leave us a comment down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you next time.